Hello, everyone. It's me, Andrew. I'm here in my home in lovely Ligonier, Pennsylvania, and hopefully, you all are doing well out there. Um, I think I've got the stream going for Instagram. Let me see. Here we go. We're live. Yeah, I was gonna do something else, and then it started storming outside, so I didn't really want to get wet and go to the cottage and be all sopping and wet. So I was like, what can I do here? And so I've been getting ready for the live right now, and yeah, hopefully you all are doing well and you're having a good week so far. William, he's at his pottery class tonight, so maybe he'll come in later. How's the quality over on Instagram? It kind of looks a little fuzzy. I don't know. Let me see if I can fix that. I'm not the tech person, so let's see. Hmm. Well, I guess it won't let me do it since we've already started. So hopefully, if the details are fuzzy on Instagram, you can hop on over to either Facebook or YouTube. If you're watching, let me know. We're going to do a little bit of sculpture tonight, I think. So tonight we'll cover some basics of polymer clay, and talk about some of the ways that I work with polymer. And It's MerMay. I don't know if y'all know what that is, but it started off as a drawing prompt on Instagram, I believe, and every day is assigned a different prompt, and then you're asked to make something and post something that is mermaid related. That corresponds with a theme. So I thought it might be fun to do something. We haven't really I haven't really had a chance to do it. We've been just so busy with everything. I haven't actually been able to do it for the past couple years. I did make something for the Patreon though. So if you didn't see that, I think it was an earlier prompt. I finished a piece that I started years ago. So if you're on Patreon, check that out. Let me see if I can't find a banner for that. There's that, patreon.com/Star Cottage Studio. Yeah, I was going to go up to the cottage tonight, and then it started torrential downpour, and I was like, I'm not getting wet. So, you know, that makes it less fun for me at least. I see Norma is watching. Not many people watching tonight. If you're watching, say hello. Um, it's been kind of weird because we have almost 8,000 followers on Facebook, and I personally have like 5,000, I think. And we got like three people seeing our posts. So I don't know what that's about. Um, Amanda's watching. Hey, Amanda. Um, yeah, I don't know if we're getting our reach kind of limited because we don't buy a lot of advertisement space. I don't know. It's always tricky to try to figure out how people are going to see you, um, when there are so many things out there. I see Charlie's watching, and Terry Inc. is watching on the Instagram. Howdy out there. Hopefully, you all are doing well. and that you're having a productive Wednesday. We had a busy night last night. If you did not see, William showed a lot of checked glass yesterday. We had some hiccups with the internet past couple nights, actually. So if you missed those, hopefully this smoothed out in the rewatch. Um, but you can check those out. There's a bunch of check glass and some Z style agate beads from the night before last. We still have some more check glass to go through, but since I didn't go to the cottage, I didn't do that tonight. So there's that. Charlie said, hello, I just made pizza. Oh, that sounds good. We made for dinner last night that lo mein recipe, except instead of using the lo mein noodles, we use egg noodles. And I think it turned out okay, but there needed to be a little bit more sauce, I think. I doctored it up today, or I doctored up half of it because we've gotten to the point where we've been so busy that I've kind of like made these giant pots of food, and then we kind of like warm things up throughout, so we don't have to spend a whole bunch of time cooking every night. And I always try to like doctor it up too, so it's not like eating the same thing every single night. So tonight I took some fake meat and added lots more sauce and made it a lot more flavorful, I think. I think the noodles also held up really nice to this. So that was a perk of using them. But I think they were a little bit starchy last night. Um, so, it was all right, but it wasn't like awesome. What about y'all? All three of you out there watching. Um, Hopefully, you all are having a delicious dinner, or at least filling your bellies. Charlie says, I do that too, lots of meal prep and then change it. Yeah, I don't. I used to do more like individual meal prep, and like on Sundays, I would like cook all day. Um, Now it's getting kind of like uh, that's harder to do also. So I'll just make a big pot of something and then doctor it up throughout the week. Our neighbor Susie's watching. Howdy. Did you get the crazy rain? We just it kind of went through already. Um, I see Karen's watching. Hello, Karen. Hopefully you're doing well. Yeah. So Charlie says individual meals are a lot. Yeah, I used to cook more. Well, I don't know. I guess I cook when we're not super busy. I'll cook an individual meal every night. But generally speaking, we're usually super busy. But I actually enjoy cooking. It's kind of meditative for me, and depending on what's kind of like fresh. Um, I like to try new recipes, and that makes me happy. So usually on Tuesdays, there's an Amish vendor who sets up on the edge of town. And usually when I go over to the cottage, I'll stop there and pick up groceries for the week, vegetables, for the week. And we it started up, but unfortunately, we missed him this week. So that was unfortunate. There's a couple different farmers markets in Johnstown that I want to check out now that we're doing more stuff there. William headed up there today and he had to drop some stuff off, of course, because we're still unpacking and getting things ready. And even though we've opened the shop, it was just a soft opening. So there's still more work to do. Our grand reopening is on June 29th, which is a Saturday. And if you're in the area, I hope you stop by. We're going to try to make it fun. We're going to see if we can get that going. And hopefully, folks will come out and celebrate with us. Because I think How many years will it be? Well, in June, we opened the store in September of whatever 12 years ago, 12 years and some change ago was. But we really saw the place in June. Um, and then it took a couple months to get open. So, yeah. Norma says, I'm still trying to figure out dinner tonight. Last night I had bean and cheese tostadas and fresh Georgia peaches. That sounds good. I love a good peach. It's one of my favorite things is a perfect peach. There's a peach truck that comes through here, but I always miss them. So I'm gonna have to look that up and see if I can't get on their list or something because I love a good peach. Amanda says tonight we had quiche and salad. That sounds good. Karen says made chickpea curry and naan for dinner. That sounds really good. I kind of made so it started off as like a lo mein that was not a lo mein. So then I kind of made it like bulgogi flavored. So we'll see if William likes it. He was saying that it wasn't as flavorful as it could be last night, so I made it like extra. So hopefully he likes that. Um, Charlie says, "Ooh, the chickpea curry sounds good." Yeah, it does. Um, so, anyways, do you all know about MerMay? Do you all do anything for that? I used to try to do it a lot more. I used to do this thing way back when called Illustration Friday, back when blogs were really popular. And they would put a new prompt, and then you would have the weekend. Well, actually, you have the week to add your creation. A lot of people were professional illustrators, so they had like huge portfolios of images, and they kind of just like took images that they already had made and kind of like tucked it in. But I use it as kind of like a prompt to make stuff, like new stuff. And that was nice, I think. Sometimes the prompts were really wackadoodle, and I'd be like, I don't know what to make with this. I don't like sometimes mermaid. I feel like they do like it definitely plays into like the geek culture or nerd culture, and so they'll do things like uh, May the Fourth be with you. Like May 4th is usually some kind of related to Star Wars, and you watch it. But I'm not really a huge Star Wars fan, so I don't really know what to make on those days. So I haven't done it for a while now, but I thought it's still May and I still like mermaids, so let's do a project with mermaids today. Um, I'm gonna make sure to hydrate as I go so I don't get hoarse. Though we were talking and talking over the weekend, and I got talked out. My voice by the end of the weekend, I was all raspy because I've been talking all weekend, and I'm not used to that. So that's exciting. If you are local on this Saturday, June 1st, Touchstone is having their open house. If you didn't know, I'm on the board for Touchstone. Um, and it's going to be a lovely day where you can walk around the different studios. There are raffles. There are all kinds of really wonderful things that happen. Usually there's music and food and all kinds of stuff. So if you are like, what is Touchstone? I'm curious to see what that's about. There's demonstrations in the different studios. It should be a lot of fun. It's a great day to kind of get familiar with what Touchstone is. So if you're in the area and you're looking for something to do, head on down to Touchstone, which is in Farmington, Pennsylvania. If you are on the northern end of our area, um, So Touchdown is about an hour and some change south of us. And then if you go an hour north, there's a town called Indiana, which is Indiana, Pennsylvania. And they're doing a launch for Local Exchange, which is a project that Sharon Massey and Sean Derry, I think that's his last name, have put together, and they've made a little mini track, and then they are making a broadcast. I really don't know that much about it, but it is in conjunction with Remake Learning and the Grable Foundation. And they do a lot to support youth learning. So that should be fun. If I can do both, I'm going to do both, but that means I'm going to be in the car like all day long. Also, if you are in the Ligonier area and you want to head to either one of those events, let me know. And I'll be going anyway, so we can carpool. So let me know and we'll make it happen. So yeah, let's see what else is going on. Like I said earlier, if you didn't see the previous nights, we have a lot of new check glass that we brought in for the new shop. So check that out. You're getting excellent prices on those. I'm sure if you claim now, William's not home from his pottery class yet, so maybe he'll extend the discount. We've been giving an extra 10% off of the check glass strands and the agate beads. So, but usually it's only for one day only. But so don't tell him, or maybe do tell him that I said it's okay. All right. What else is going on? Just busy getting ready for things. There's a project that's going on at the Metal Museum in Memphis where there was a wonderful artist who's named Martha Banyas, and she was really instrumental in the enameling community and was always coming up with new approaches to enameling and exploring new products, and was really a pioneer of mason stains being used in enameling. Unfortunately, she passed away, and she donated the contents of her studio to the Metal Museum. And they're going to dedicate the new enameling studio to Martha. And in the meantime, there's going to be an exhibition of her work. And I think some of her pieces or some of her things from her studio. I'm not 100% sure. There are also pieces that are being pulled from the permanent collection to be shown during the exhibition that are enameled pieces. And also, they are creating a commemorative quilt. It's not really a quilt, but it's in that style of a quilt where they asked artists all over the world to create a 4x4 tile. And yesterday, if you didn't see it, I showed mine. I did kind of a corvid, raven or crow with a crown. Excuse me, of course, and some stars. And I splurged and used 24 karat gold, which I don't know how often I'm going to be doing that because the price shot up. I thought it was expensive before, but it's even more expensive now. So, and you get like 1 gram, and that's not a lot. So, I'm going to do some experiments with different gold applications on the Patreon. So, keep your eyes peeled for that if you are signed up. Um, and yeah, so I'll do that over there. A lot of times I make a lot of stuff and I do a lot of experiments and I do a lot of trials and I try things out and do a lot of different things and test new techniques out. But I don't usually record a lot of that, at least not publicly. So the Patreon has been kind of my repository of the different things I've been trying. So if you're into enameling, this might be for you. or if you just want to support us, this is also another way that you can do that. So check that out if you haven't already. Some of it is free content, and then some of it's behind a paywall. So yeah. And I always like to share what we do with the money that we raise through that. Usually it's stuff to upkeep or to add improvements to Star Cottage Studio. So, like one time we bought lights. In the early days, we didn't have too many people signed up, so it was not that exciting because we got, there's like, $8 or whatever. So it was not, we couldn't go too hog wild with that. So, yeah. So now we have a little bit more money every month. So we, can do a little bit more with it. But it all adds up and we're super grateful for everyone. So thank you so much. All right. Oh, and then I made another tile. And then I posted that on my Instagram and my Andrew Thornton artist page. So if you didn't see that, check that out. It's an owl friend done in the same style, but in different colors. All right. Let's see. So what are y'all up to? Anything interesting and exciting? We've been just busy getting ready for the store. We've been staying up late, working on projects. I have a bunch of deadlines. Everything is due on the 1st, by the way. Like everything, or the 31st. The 31st or the 1st, everything's due then. I'm like, what? Yeah, it's like crickets, 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 and then like boom, everything's due on them. So I've got a lot of stuff that I'm trying to finish up, and some of it's working out and some of it's not. So it just is what it is. You just have to do what you can do. And just as watching on YouTube, checking in here. Well, thank you, Angela. And yeah, so all right. So what else are we doing? Yeah, just more getting the shop set up for the grand reopening. William was there doing a verification process for Google. Apparently, when you reach a certain number of people, you have to go through this kind of complicated process, and he has to like show him with the keys opening the door and showing the product and the sign, and there's all this like list of stuff he has to do to prove that that we actually moved and it's not somebody doing something like malicious. I guess that's a real concern where I guess if anybody could just claim your business page, then that's less than ideal. So that makes sense why they do all the things that they make you do. All right. So yeah, I've been super busy with some enameling things. I've been trying to create some new techniques with enameling, and we'll see how that turns out. I'm kind of excited. I do have some things that I'm going to post on the Patreon tonight, maybe tomorrow night. I don't know, but hopefully you all enjoy that. All right, I'm not going to talk too much longer because our numbers keep going down and we didn't have that many to begin with. So I'm going to flip this around and then we'll get started. How about that? If you're watching and you're making something or you read a good book or listen to something good, new music, or watching a show, let us know. I always like to hear what people are getting up to. We are watching Bridgerton. I feel like we're a little bit late. Whoops. You can see my knees. That's not ideal. I am wearing pants. They're just short pants. All right. So I have a tile here, and that's what I'm going to do most of my sculpting on. And I've got 3 types of clay, or 3 colors of clay. This is all Sculpey Primo. This is an oven-baked clay. You bake it at 275 for every quarter-inch thickness for 15 minutes. Did I get that right? 275, 30 minutes for quarter-inch thickness. Oh, they upped it. So we'll just have to keep that in mind. I've got 3 colors. I have white. This is Ecru. Is this another Ecru? So I have 2 colors. I have Ecru and white. I thought this was a light gold because they have a light gold um also, and I was going to use that, but so we're going to use these. So what I like to do is condition the clay first. When I'm at the studio, I have a pasta roller. It's motorized and it's pretty wonderful because it really gets um the kind of emulsifiers kind of all mixed up all through a lot thoroughly, and it gets everything nice and easy to work with, which prevents breakage and allows you to do lots of stuff. Sometimes it kind of dries out, or all the juices in the clay kind of settle to one side, and it can cause cracking and unflattering, things like that. So I like to condition my clay, and one of the ways that I do that is I do kind of like a trick, and I'll take 2 colors. Well, there's a couple of reasons why I do this. One reason is that I do 2 colors because, for one, you won't get what I call straight out of the package color. You're going to have a custom color that way. And, it just elevates the work in that way that it's just a little bit more attention to detail. I mean, if you want to work straight from the package, by all means, do so. But I think, like when you're painting, if you can mix your own colors up, it just makes it that much more unique and kind of fits with your individual style. So I like to mix my colors. The more white you add, the lighter it gets. The more color you add to it, the darker it gets. Sometimes I'll also mix in a little bit of granite. It's a clay that has a little bit of speckles in it. And the reason why I do that is because if we have cats, and we have a house where we live our lives. And what that means is that there's all kinds of stuff, there's dust and all kinds of things like that. And it can get into the clay. And when it's in the clay, especially when you're working with light colors, you can sometimes see it. So having that granite mixed in kind of makes that intentional, and it makes it look like you did that on purpose instead of by accident. So there's nothing quite like spending hours and hours sculpting like a face or something, and then you bake it, and then you reveal like a hair sticking out straight in the middle, and then it's like embedded in. So just be mindful of that. Charlie says, I'm cleaning and hanging art on the wall, hoping to do some art or bead later on. Oh, good. Let's see. Suzanne is watching. Hi, Suzanne. All right. So the other reason why I like to mix the colors is that you get to see in real time if you conditioned your clay properly. So there's a couple different things you can look for. Um, and one of those things is I like to mix the clay, and it creates kind of a uniform color. If it's all swirly, that's a good effect. And I think that's a really wonderful thing that you can do to create kind of a faux bone, kind of a faux ivory, or faux wood. They call it faux bois. So there's a lot of things that you can do. You can make like fake stone uh, patterns with it. It's really wonderful. However, with this, you want the color to be all one color. If you do want to make swirls, just make, just add a little bit of white to it, and then do your other color and mix that with another color so that you still get two even distinct colors of clay. And then that way, when you're mixing stuff, you're guaranteed that everything is properly conditioned. So, because I don't have my pasta roller with me, I'm just kind of kneading the dough or the clay, and this helps soften it up and make it a little bit more workable, and not so stiff. Sometimes when you open a bag of clay, it can be kind of hard, and sometimes that's good. Sometimes you want a stiff clay so that you can like carve into it or incise in it, do different things like that. However, what I found is that if you don't condition your clay, chances are it's going to crack, and that's not the end of the world. However, if you want to make your life easier, it's just always better to condition the clay first, and then go from there, because you're less likely to have any kind of breakage and cracking and stuff like that. All right. So I'm going to be going and doing. I'm conditioning the clay. Now, one way that you can do this is you can also roll this out and make kind of a snake or a coil, and then you can twist it, and that's another thing that you can do. Now, one thing you also have to be mindful of is you don't want to work a bunch of air into your clay, because it will cause air pockets. And if you heat up air, sometimes it can expand, and it can kind of puff up like a puff pastry. So just be mindful of that. Again, if it happens, it's not the end of the world. You just take a sharp tool and stab the little pocket and release the air and push the clay down, and it's like it wasn't even there. All right. So this is on its way to being conditioned. I can still feel it's a little bit stiff. So I'm going to just be mindful of that. I'm also going to be extra careful. I have this lovely African cloth down, that's indigo dyed, and it's really pretty. However, if my clay touches that, it's going to have blue fibers in it. So I'm just trying to be extra careful of that, because I don't want it to get all scuzzy, the clay to get all these like little hairs and colors in it. And sometimes the colors in like blue jeans will come off on your hands. And there are certain like doll makers who sell like $15,000 dolls and stuff. So they won't even wear blue jeans in their studio when they're mixing their clay, because sometimes the lint can come off of their jeans and stain the clay. So just keep that in mind. Another thing about like preparations for the polymer clay. Um, if you have skin sensitivities, you can also use gloves. I know some people, they have issues with that. So if you have issues with that, you can still work with it. Within reason, but you should definitely wear gloves if it bothers you. However, it's a product that was originally designed and marketed to children, so it's relatively safe. When you are baking it, it can off gas a little bit, and if you're baking a lot of stuff all at once, it can kind of get a little bit whiffy. So make sure that when you're baking it at the end, that you have proper ventilation, or you just open a window, and hopefully that cross breeze comes through and clears out that um, that funk. I see Shelby Scott's watching. Hello. There's Canned Ham Studios watching. Hi there. Who else we've got? Hopefully, if you're watching and kind of lurking, you enjoy. So I've got these two colors. I've got this big piece of white, and I have this less big piece of that ecru. And what I'm doing now is I'm conditioning the clay. You can see it's already got kind of some schmutz in it already. I'm going to try to pick out anything too wild, but I'm not going to be overly precious, because a lot of my work it's not really precious like that. I mean, I do try to take care of things and make sure that I spend like time, and I'm thoughtful about the things I do and the things I make. However, I'm not somebody who is super concerned about things being perfect. I had one professor, and granted, he sells paintings for 40, 50,000, but he would prep the surface of his paintings, and it would take months to just prep the surface before he could even start painting. And like, he'd stretch his own canvas and use rabbit skin sizing and gesso that from the calcium carbonate that he ground down himself, and put down the ground, and polished that smooth, and then did that 6 more times. And really, it's just a lot of work to go into that. So if and then by the end, you almost didn't want to make anything, because it was like so pristine. It was like super perfect. Like you could, by the time it was finished, his pieces looked like a piece of like almost honed marble, because they were like so precise and smooth, from adding layers and layers of gesso and sanding and doing all kinds of stuff in between. So, anyways, I'm not like that. I'm more rough and ready. Not too rough and ready, but definitely more so than that professor. So again, I'm just gonna work it until there's no more swirls. I do want a piece that kind of has. I was thinking about this, and I wanted a piece that's kind of like, it looks kind of like a scrimshaw, maybe. And those are made with like whale bones or walrus ivory, and it would be one way that a sailor could like commemorate a trip and document things. And if somebody was illiterate, then it could be for them to, as a record of them keeping track of things. So yeah. So I like that idea of that color, that warm kind of a warm white, kind of creamy color. All right, I'm still conditioning the clay. If you have a pasta roller, it goes way faster and it's less hard on your hands. So I'm just doing it for this piece, but like sometimes my hands ache by the time I'm finished. So I don't, if I can get around doing it, and just paying somebody else to do it, then then oh my train of thought just kind of went sideways there. Um, anyways, I forgot what I was talking about. I started thinking about something else, and then there's that. So, anyways, I'm just conditioning clay. All right, so I've got this. I'm gonna work this a little bit more so that it's a little bit more of a consistent color. I wasn't originally planning on doing a polymer clay demo. If I was, I probably would have conditioned the clay beforehand to make it a little bit easier. And also, the clay will condition quicker if your hands are warmer. My hands tend to, and if it's a warmer room, for example, my hands tend to be like icicles or whatever. So, not ideal for conditioning clay. Usually, I don't do this for conditioning clay. I usually use my pasta roller. All right. Once you get done, this is pretty uniform. That's my hand texture. You're going to press it down, and you're going to want to press it and kind of make sure that it's all kind of one. You don't want there to be great big seams in it. In the ceramic world, they would call this wedging, and you're getting the air bubbles out. So I'm just compressing this down so that there aren't any great big air pockets in there. And I've got this little kind of square shape. So, I mean, we've been at it for about 30 minutes. So that's kind of the prep. All right, here you go. And again, I said, like, this stuff that's on here, if I was more particular, I could take a razor blade and scratch off whatever is on here, like a tissue blade, and then give it a good scrub with some Dawn dish detergent and some, a Scotch-Brite pad or something like that. And that'll take off some of the excess, like crust and stuff. I use this for all kinds of different art projects, so that's why it's kind of crusty right now. But anyway, so I've got this, my little block of clay, and I'm going to cut off or pull off, about, I don't know, a little less than half. And then I'm going to roll a ball. You're going to put the clay in the palm of your hand and use the indentations of your hands, rolling it out nice and smooth. And then I kind of want the shape to be a little bit ovally. So I'm going to roll this out a little bit. So it kind of makes this ovally egg shape. And then I'm going to press down. Okay. So I've got this shape. I press this down and it makes it nice and smooth on the back. So I'm just going to flip this over. And the cool thing about the working on a tile like this is that you can put this directly in the oven. And because you bake at 275 for 30 minutes for a 1/4 inch thickness, the tiles they fire at like 2000 degrees, so they should be safe going in your oven. And it makes it also very portable to lift up your projects. And like for my purposes, I'm going to zoom in and show you the detail, so it's good for that. Now, with that said, you do have to be mindful of thermal shock. So if you have a tile that's really hot that's come out of the oven, don't put it in like cold water because it will probably break. And also just be mindful not to drop it, because it can shatter also. So, you just have to treat it with respect, and it should last a lifetime. I've had this tile probably at least 10 years, at least, probably more. And it's great because it's a nice big surface, and I can work on multiple projects, and it fits into a toaster oven. So usually I have a dedicated toaster oven, and I'll use that to fire my pieces. So one thing that you can do, if you are not a sculptor, you can do a couple different things and it will help you kind of lay out your project. What if you are not a sculptor and you're not a drawer? One thing you can do is you can take an image and then trace it onto a piece of paper with a graphite pencil, like a Dixon Ticonderoga #2, and trace that image onto some copy paper and then flip it over onto the clay and then slightly burnish it on the back, and that pencil will transfer to your clay and give you an outline of your piece. That is a good way, and then it's kind of like fill in the dots, you then start sculpting. Now, whenever I start, I should say this, I don't do just subtractive sculpting, and I don't do just additive sculpting. I do a combination of both. So with like when you're doing stone carving, that's a subtractive process. Very rarely, if ever, will you add material when you're carving stone like that. Um, and there's certain wax processes where you have to build it up um, in layers. So that would be an additive process. So for me, I kind of do both. Like if I need clay, I have this kind of excess on the side here, my little side piece clay, and I can add onto my sculpture. And if I don't like something, I can always cut it away or gouge it out or whatever. So for me, what I'm going to use today for my sculpting tool is a clay shaper. I use this for a lot of different things. So I have a couple different ones. They have different firmnesses. Um, there's a gray one, which they say is maybe firm, maybe medium. I don't know, but it's very like squishy. There's a white one that's like extra squishy. I don't even use the white one. I was like, this is not. This is I don't know what this is. But the black one is generally a little bit more firm, which I like for what I do. So if you do something else and that works for you, by all means, enjoy it to your heart's content. For me, I'm going to, generally speaking, like to use the most firm tip for my clay shaper. I use this for sgraffito. I use it for all kinds of things. And sculpting is one of those. All right. So I've got this little kind of egg shape that I've pressed out, an oval. And then I'm going to take off a little piece and start blocking out my form. All right. So, whenever I'm drawing or sculpting or whatever I'm doing, I generally like to do two things. I like reference materials, even if it's a fantastical creature. So, what I'll do if it's a fantastical creature, sometimes I'll make a collage of real things, or I'll have close ups of like, if I'm making a dragon, for example, I'll have close ups of actual creatures that exist in the real world, and like close-ups of different kind of like webbing and stuff like that. That way it's kind of rooted in reality. It gives it a little bit more of that realism, even if it's something completely fantastical. I was watching a movie once and it was called The Fountain, and they have these like supernovas and things that are like so far away that it's like it's almost impossible for a human actually to see that kind of stuff. So instead what they did is they did like super duper close-ups of like yeast or something like that. I can't remember what it is, but the macro kind of mirrors the micro. And Yeah, so they used that for the special effects, which gave it more realism, even if it is completely fantasy. Michelle's watching. Hi, Michelle. All right, so when I'm working, I'll do two things. I will start from the general and work to the specific, which means I'm roughing out shapes and then refining them. And then I'm also, generally speaking, going to use reference materials. Those can be paintings, those can be photographs, those can be collages. It's always good to kind of root your thing in reality. Now, of course, since I kind of did this on the fly, I don't have a whole bunch of reference materials to pull from, but there you have it. So I've got this shape. This is going to be I've kind of rolled this out um, into a little oval, and then I've been squeezing it between my thumb. What the heck is a thumb? My thumb and my forefinger, and it kind of makes this little sperm shape. Um, and I'm going to use that, and that's going to be the head. All right, I'm going to press this. Now, one thing you should be mindful of is that um, whenever you're pressing clay into clay, it may stick um, to the surface, and you may be like, oh, it's perfectly fine now. It's perfectly fine. However, what I found is that sometimes if you just rely on it, like you roll it out and stick it on there like that, you're like, oh, that's totally going to um that's totally gonna adhere. It's sticking now. However, when you bake it, sometimes that stuff can pop right off. I did this little head, and I made the headdress by stacking little little flattened uh rounds of clay, and I just stuck them on without putting an armature or anything. And it looked fine, and it was fine at first. However, when I started to mold stuff, I was putting a lot of pressure on it, and some of those little nubbins fell off. So just keep that in mind. And the way that you do that is you take your clay shaper and you kind of go around the seams of your creation, the pieces that you're adding on, and that should hold it. Now, in the ceramics world, if you wanted to add something, you would add score and slip. So you'd make a texture, and then you add a little bit of slip, and then you kind of wiggle it until it doesn't wiggle anymore, and then it locks in place, and that's how you know it's going to have a good bond. However, you don't generally need to do that with polymer. You can use liquid polymer as a glue and glue stuff on and help bond things, but you don't necessarily have to do that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, I've got kind of the head shape here, the neck shape here. I'm going to work on the shoulders and torso. And like I said, we're going to work from the general to the specific. So what I'm going to do is I've got this shape that's kind of like a plug. It's a little bit like a triangle, but more three-dimensional. And I'm going to put it like that. And again, I'm going to kind of smash down the seams so that this doesn't come up. Right now, I'm being really loosey-goosey. I'm not going to be particular at all about my piece. And the reason why is you're going to work this for a lot more, and it's not, if you start working on like adding details now, you're going to make yourself sad because you're going to constantly be smashing your details. All right, so I've got the torso, and I'm going to add the belly right now. So I'm going to add this little round piece that I kind of just smashed there down there on the point of that kind of triangular shape that I added. Now, again, it helps to have an anatomical reference. So if you have pictures and stuff, that helps also. Now, what I was saying earlier was you can also take your piece. Now, you only want to do this for temporary because you can leach out the emulsifier by putting on a piece of paper, and we don't necessarily want to do that. Sometimes if your clay is like super mushy, sometimes you'll want to do that, and you'll see if you put it on a piece of paper, like it looks like, you know, like when you fry the chicken and you put it in the paper towel. Well, that's what happens. So if you, and it kind of leaves that kind of like darkened area, that's from the emulsifier and the liquids in the polymer kind of leaching into the paper. So don't do that unless it's really mushy and you need it to be stiffer. All right. So what I was saying earlier is you can draw out your form, and I would do this if I was doing this for real. I would use that number 2 Dixon Ticonderoga pencil because that will transfer. I don't know what she's doing, but here you go. And she's like, behold. All right, so we're just going to sketch out our design. And when you're doing the transfer of this, you don't need it to be super particular. However, you know, the more details, the better. Actually, that's not true. Basically, you just want the forms for this part. So then if this is in the Dixon Ticonderoga, I'm going to try not to get banned by Facebook, so I'm not going to make it too detailed. All right, so I did a rough sketch, and then what you can do is then transfer that onto the clay. I don't actually want to do that, but it'll pick up. It won't really pick up this. I mean, it did a little bit. You can kind of see it. And then what you would do is you just fill in the dots with clay. I'm going to mix this up since I mixed that color in, that purple. And I don't want that purple to be staining my clay necessarily. All right. So next thing I'm going to do, it's going to be reversed because whatever you draw and then you press down is going to be reverse. So if you did have to use this as a guide, you would do this in pencil and then put this down, and then it would be in reverse. So if you're doing lettering, you have to write it backwards because when you press it down, it's going to be the right way. But if you're just drawing out, it will be backwards. So if you're going to write the, you have to write it backwards. And that will make, when you transfer it onto your clay, if you can see through, can you see through the paper? Can you see through the paper? Then it'll be the right size. That's really good if you have to sculpt in reverse. Anyways, so here you go. So I've got my head, torso, and I'm going to work on the tail now. So it's basically a lot of these teardrop shapes. And again, if you add too much, you can always take it away. Like you're not, committed to that form. Just because you made it doesn't mean that you have to like live with it forever. So if it's too much clay, take some off, and there you go. And so I want to add a little bit of movement into that. So I'm going to pull this up and add a little bit of a swirl into it. See how that is? And then I'm going to press this down. And this is really a good tool for blending. And again, I'm kind of pressing this down for multiple reasons. For one, I want it to stick, and I want this to be a part of one creation. I don't want this to spend all this time working on this and then it just pops off after it's baked. So I'm blending the edges just so that it's going to stick to my surface of my clay. I'm going to be a little bit careful in the sense that any texture that I make that I don't want, I'm going to have to clean up. So I'm not getting all wild because then I have to go and smooth all that business later. All right. So I'm not being super like pristine and precise with this, but at the same time, um, I'm not um I'm not gonna add too much texture just yet because I'm still working. So I don't want that all to disappear. So one thing that you should think about when you're doing this kind of sculpting is this is kind of a relief sculpture that we're doing. Is we don't necessarily want this to uh, we we're not working in the 3D. We're working in a relief style. So half of it is flat. So that means that you can't. So there's a couple things to keep in mind. If you're going to make this to mold, you want to make it in the pieces so that there aren't what are called undercuts. Undercuts are when the clay kind of juts out and creates kind of like a ledge, like a cliff. And then the mold material can get stuck underneath and then it rips the mold when you're pulling it out. And then conversely, whenever you're making multiples of it, it'll also rip that out. So just be careful of that. If you're not doing that, then you can get kind of as sculptural as you want. But you have to also remember that if you have anything that's sticking out like a lot, you may have to add an armature. Otherwise, polymer is an incredible material. It's very durable. It can last a long time. It's a really fantastic medium. However, it's not indestructible and it can be fragile. So if you have like an arm sticking off into the universe, for one, when it goes into the oven, it will slump because if you don't have anything supporting it, the polymer gets kind of soft when it's in the oven and before it cools down and hardens and cures completely. So, so that arm will kind of flop over. I remember I made this one sculpture, and this is fairly early on, so maybe it's like 10, I don't know. And it was like of an old man or old woman, I can't remember exactly. And I sculpted it and I was so proud of it, so proud of it. And I put it in the oven and it was kind of tall and but when I took it out of the oven it had kind of like slumped over and collapsed in on its own weight. So just keep that in mind if you do decide to do anything like that. You can add an armature for extra strength and that will help keep things kind of like upright and it will also add rigidity. So if anything breaks then you can just mend the cracks and you don't have to like completely sculpt a new arm all over again. But what I'm saying right now is that if you're going to work in this relief style of sculpting, just kind of conform to the shape that you're working with, and that will help it be really sturdy. All right. So I've got this, and it's a kind of a flattened almond shape. And I'm going to add that. That's going to be one of the fins. I'm going to do the same thing over here, pinching both sides. And I'm just going to put this on here. Now, this is also a good time to think about composition. So if we have this, we can kind of plan this out. If we want this to be, if you wanted to put a jewel or something there, you could definitely do that. There's a lot of different things that you can do. You can embed stuff into polymer clay as long as it doesn't melt. There's a lot of different things you can do. So it's good to have kind of a plan to work from. You can freehand it all day long if you want. However, it is good to have a plan so that you can kind of understand what you have to do and figure out your orders of operation. So there you go. So it is in reverse, but and if your mind doesn't work like that, you can always hold this up to the light and then you can kind of see that through there. All right, so what we gonna do? Blend it. Blend the edges down, because otherwise it'd be like this. Oops, gone, definned, fish fillet. That's what's for dinner. So just be careful and blend the edges down. Again, we're not adding a ton of detail. We're blocking out the shapes because we're working from the general to the specific. All right. So I'm blending this down. Again, I am being mindful. I don't want to create a bunch of marks that I have to get rid of later. But at the same time, I do want this to be adhered well to the clay surface. All right. This looks not that great, but that's all right. That's right. Now you can always use this clay shaper. I like this clay shaper because you can kind of create some texture with this. And it also will allow you kind of to see if anything's pulling up. And it will also kind of give that illusion of depth, and it creates that texture, and you can create more depth with the illusion using texture. So keep that in mind as you're working. I also like this because it kind of pushes the clay, so you kind of get like almost like brush strokes, which are nice. And again, if you have reference materials, it will help. So you don't have to like constantly be creative. I was talking to a friend the other day, and she's like, "What do you do when you have the equivalent of writer's block?" And I said, I don't really get writer's block. I don't really go into creative slumps. And she's like, "What?" And the thing is that like I study, and this probably sounds super geeky, but I study what makes people creative. I study and I do a lot of internal work on myself to see why I make things. There are people who they talk about the why of making. Why do you make artwork? And once you discover why you make stuff, it kind of opens up a lot of different things. It's like, why do you make things? You can kind of understand um, that a little bit more. You get to, if you have, if it's a trauma response, then, you can better understand that and figure out different patterns of like, what is it to seek validation? Is it to, there's a lot of different reasons why people make things. And sometimes it's like, I've heard people and they're like, oh, I just make things because I can't not make them. I think that's, maybe a little bit true, but also at the same time, that's real vague. And I've noticed that people who say that don't really want to dig deeper. And you don't necessarily have to dig deeper, but I feel like the more you know about things, the more power you have. And so when you don't know what to make and you run into the part where you have a dry spell, if you know why you make things, then you can reignite your creativity, and you won't have that dry spell anymore. I mean, that's way oversimplified. And, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a doctor. So you have to take that with a grain of salt, because they'll be like, well, Dr. Andrews said, and like, I'm not Dr. Andrews. So don't be going and giving me the malpractice for something I don't even do. All right. So I'm making this little hat shape, and that's going to be the hair. And it looks kind of a mess right now. Again, we're working from the general to the specific. All right, here we go. And be like, why don't you go and get to the specific part? Well, right now, what we're doing is we're kind of sketching in clay. And that's going to be what we're doing for probably a little while here. This clay shaper is good because it's nice and firm, and it actually moves the clay. With the softer ones, you can be pressing and pressing, and it's like nothing's happening. So I like this firmer one. You can do sgraffito with it for like enameling techniques. It's a really useful tool for enameling. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have these for other things. So again, I'm just kind of just kind of roughing out a texture so that it kind of tricks the eye into kind of like filling in the blanks. And what I mean by that is when people are reading, and this may be a surprise, people don't read every word. And they've actually proven this by doing these tests where they'll like leave certain words out, or they'll make certain words in like spelled in a reverse order. And it's a thing that happens with your brain, and your brain compensates these things by finding patterns. And so, and this is like a speed reading technique too, is it will hit, I can't remember how many letters or whatever, but it when your brain kind of scans the text or the image and then fills in the rest. So that's why it's important, to like always read stuff, because sometimes if your brain fills in stuff, um then not ideal. Now you may be wondering about that and be like, that doesn't sound real at all. But one way that you can kind of test this out is if you close one eye and look straight ahead, you can see the outline of your nose. And then if you close the other eye, you can see the outline of your nose too. But then if you open both eyes and look, unless you're doing some kind of cross, I don't even know if you can do it with cross eye, but your brain edits out your nose. Isn't that so wild? But like, close one eye and look, and there you can see your nose framing whatever, and close the other, you can see the other side of your nose and whatever. And then when you open both eyes, poof, gone, but it's there. And that's kind of the thing that your brain does. It fills in things and takes things out. So when you're working, sometimes it's good to give your brain those visual clues of what this is. Like, there's a texture on the tail, even though we know that I'm going to take that texture away as I work with it. And that's kind of like your brain filling in what this is. Lenna says, that's how you know you need new glasses. If you drive where your brain fills in the street names, but drive somewhere new You can't read the street signs. Yeah, so, you have to be careful. But it's true. It's like, this little girl came into the shop, and she had been, in the foster care system, and when her, forever home parents adopted her, they were like, "Oh my gosh, she's such a good reader. She's such a good reader. She can read along with the books so good." And what she was doing is she only had that one book, and she memorized the book. So when they would go through it, she would like pretend like she was reading, but she'd memorized the book, but she didn't actually know how to read. So when they gave her other books, she really struggled with it. So that's one of those things where an example of how you can kind of your brain starts filling in things. And I think brain science is pretty fascinating. So there you go. All right, so I got this, and it's real rough and ready, right? All right, we're going to continue to refine the shapes, and this is kind of like the fun. I think it's all fun, actually, so I'm not going to say anything, but I think this is the fun part where you can kind of really customize, the personality of your creature by adding those little details. And we'll start by creating that form. All right, so we know that this looks kind of funny because the head is going to stick out more than the neck. But right now, the neck is the same length or the same height as the face. So we know that we're going to have to kind of knock that in and reduce that. And then since there's a lot of clay up here, we're going to kind of create the suprasternal notch, and we're going to start building the clavicle. And we're also going to start kind of mapping out the pectoral area. And you can always, everybody's different. You can kind of play with that. And you can go Dolly Parton style if you want, whatever you want to do. And then now I'm going to rough out the arms. Now, this is, again, we're just roughing out the shape. So I'm just going to add this little giblet there. And I'm going to blend in the seams, of course. And that's not going to stick up, because if that's stuck up, it's going to break off because I don't have an armature under there. But I do want that material there for when I do start refining my shapes. So that's what that looks like right now. Real rough, right? Not, it's not anything, nothing real special right now. Now, I'm going to do a bigger face, I think, and then I'll show you, then we'll do it in miniature after I do the next arm. Actually, I'm going to continue doing this arm, adding a piece on like this. And right now, she look a little butch, like, she work out. And that's fine too, but we'll refine this a little bit more as we go. And that looks kind of weird, But once we blend down the edges and remove some of the clay and push some of the clay around, it will make more sense. Because remember, general to specific. All right, and we don't want anything to pop up. So there you go. All right. So now we're going to continue to refine the shape. So we're going to want that neck. So again, if you have this clay shaper tool, it's really handy. You can insert this around where the neck is and kind of push the clay to go where you want it to go. And we're going to push this clay around. Now, because it's good to look at anatomy when you're doing like the human figure. The thing is like a lot of times, like we look at these like ancient sculptures and they look real primitive, but then if you look at them closer, you start realizing, let me see if I can zoom in. I can't zoom in. You start seeing that they're actually really carefully observed. So you start seeing where they have incorporate like the body and like there's like rolls of flesh and different things like that. And I think it's really kind of wonderful how even if something is just kind of like a blob of looks like a blob of rock, if you look kind of closer, you can see a lot of details. So we're working on different planes of like the stomach and the abdomen right now. And again, working on blending this kind of like elbow. And right now we're not doing a whole lot of subtracting. It's a lot of like pushing in, but not a whole lot of subtracting. You can definitely subtract away. And if you have stiffer sculpting tools, that will help do that. All right. So we know like this is the neck, this is the chin. We're going to try to build in a jawbone. And so this is what's called the suprasternal notch. And then there's clavicle, their collarbone. And they're like, why is he fixated with them? Chest. And it's not really because I have any particular persuasion or whatever, but I'm also trying to be mindful, like when I'm looking at this, like I don't want these to be like pointing like way far out and then this like be like, or this be too far out. I'm kind of wanting to keep everything in the same plane, except for the places that I want to seem like more prominent. So this arm, this arm right here needs to have the illusion that it's higher up, even though it is basically on the same level as the chest. So you have to kind of play with the illusion of this. And also we're pushing down the material, and it's going to kind of build up the bulk of the base, but that's okay because we don't need it to be any kind of particular like parameters or whatever. All right, now this is where the anatomy kind of comes in good, because then you can look at, there's this weird kind of transition that happens between I don't know if you can see that or not, but in that kind of armpit area. So it helps to look at other sculptures and things like that, because then you can see how other artists kind of tackle those areas. And I think that's helpful. All right, again, we're kind of filling in the kind of illusion of hair, but again, it's way too early to be adding any kind of real serious details. Now, I'm going to use the back of this little tool. Oh, actually, I'm not. I'm going to use the tip. I'm going to press in some eyes. I'm kind of pressing with the tip of the clay shaper. And then I'm going to do underneath the nose. And then the mouth. Now we'll have to address this so she don't look like a blow-up doll. But again, we're just roughing out this real simple. We're not going to go too detailed just yet, but it does give you the illusion of what you need, or the idea of what you need to still do yet. So that, I just pushed up that rim and made some lips. And if you're not used to using this clay shaper, it may not feel natural because it is kind of squishy. So you kind of have to play around with it. But, practice makes perfect. All right, so we've hollowed out the eyes a little bit. And as you can see, I'm kind of going around in a circle. And then I'm going to go and I'm just going to tap in there and use that tippy tip and give you kind of an illusion of eyes. All right, but again, we're not doing anything too detailed. I mean, this is getting pretty detailed, and it's kind of dangerous because the dangerous part of this is that you can start fixating on the details, and then you don't have your shape kind of mapped out, and then you can have problems where you then end up spending all this time on details, and then you just go over them, and then it gets smashed and you waste your time. But that's just to give you the kind of base understanding of what you need to do. Now, when you're working with a skull, a face, let me make a quick kind of demo. So if this is the head, and you can see where it got all that dirty from the fabric. So just be mindful of that. This clay is no longer pristine. So if that's the head, you have your eye sockets and the skull, right? You actually have a nose hole socket, and then this is going to be a where your mouth hole is. So I generally pull it like this. And I actually don't put that. I actually pinch it. So this is the start of a face. And then you would put your eyes in. Generally speaking, I would take these little round pieces, the little balls, and put them in there. I mean, I would over-exaggerate the. Okay, I'm going to over-exaggerate this. Because, again, we're going to blend stuff in. So you just have to kind of work in that way. So you have these. That looks real scary right now. And then you would just gently use the tip of that to put that in there. And then smooth over the eyelids and create the nose. Hi, William.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
I'm putting them to sleep.
Oh no!
This is the sleeping time with
Andrew TT, Andy TT.
Yeah, and those things keep falling all over the countryside. Those are slippery bags. Anyway, so when you build this in, this little face, I'm showing them real quick how to make a face. It looks terrifying right now. You build in like the upper lip, and the lower lip, and then here's where the skull comes in. So if you can picture the skull, you have those eye cavities, right? And then these come in where you have your bones. There's a what do you call that? The hollow in the cheeks. Not me. I'm a little bit rounded there. But that's like to get the bone structure, right? So we know that there's this. That shape comes in like that. That's like the skull, right? Did y'all watch MacGyver ever? And he found the skull, and then he took some erasers, and then he cut up them erasers, and then somehow he like CSI'd it, and he made her face out of eraser ends. Well, basically that's how you do it. And then from there, once you have that kind of basic understanding of where the skull is, the actual bone structure, then you can go in, like I've been on repeat, you go from the general to the specific, and you can kind of create this. This looks a hot mess, y'all, but it's getting there, right? We're designating where certain features are and what face kind of we're going to be making. And it looks a mess right now, but with a few kind of motions with my tool here, I can create a face that's not horrifying. Based off of those kind of structures. So that's where, like, you know how people will like study anatomy for like a long time. I mean, if your goal is to make realistic portraitures in clay, that's the best way to learn, is to like really observe the human form, get up there and touch it, and legally, you don't get in trouble. Be grappling somebody's face muscles and be like, well, Andrew told me the only way to learn is if I touch. So you get consent first so you don't get into the prison. But the more you do it and the more you kind of like refine the shape, this is real rough, but as you can see, it's starting to develop. So that looks a nightmare still. But you can always go in there. And then I also like to put uh beads in for the eyes or non-perials, or I'll make little balls out of clay, and then I'll bake them, and then the clay will kind of bond to itself. So but you can see, this is maybe looking less horrifying. And that's just with a few small things that we're adding. Not anything. I haven't done anything like wild, I'm not doing anything wild yet. But I am just kind of refining that shape. So you just have to kind of, with this, since it's much smaller, you kind of have to be a little bit mindful. You're working more with the tip of the tool than you are with the broad, flat side of it. And you can also use your fingertips to kind of spread some of the excess clay. But you can kind of see it's coming along. So anyways, you just keep working that. That looks like, imagine running into the mermaid that looks like this, a little bit slightly drunk. And it's going to get you. And it's like, I'm going to suck your life out. I'm hungry for life. This is also where a harder tool comes in handy, because you can really split the clay that way. How is your class, William? Oh no.
It was one of those I got absolutely nothing made.
Is it because you're not in practice?
Yeah, everything I tried fell apart. And it just wasn't I couldn't get in the mindset, I couldn't get in the headspace. And so I reversed my will and I tried doing things the other way.
How did that work?
I didn't get anything made because it all fell apart, but I was trying to push things, but it was just trying to get myself out of that because I was getting frustrated. So I'm like, okay, let me do it the other way so that if it falls apart, at least I know this is probably going to happen because I'm going the reverse direction. But yeah, I wanted to try to do taller things, and it just was not happening.
One thing says, I like the Christie Friesen tool. I like it too. One thing I'll say is that that tool is a little bit heavy. So my preferred sculpting tool is actually a porcupine, African porcupine. No, I'm working with whatever I found in the kitchen, which I happen to have a clay shaper. So you get kind of more gestural than not. Anyways, this is just for practice purposes anyway. So that's not going to be for anything anyway. So that's just to show you you can make your own tools. You can take a piece of wire. Oh, look, this earring, and you can make your own tools. And this says, I still have my porcupine tool from your class. I prefer that because you can shape it to anything you want, and you can polish it, and it's light. So sometimes you don't want a lot of force, and you want more finesse, and that's going to give you the finesse. The one where it's if it's too heavy, if you're working with big stuff, then it's fine. It's kind of like when you're working with metal. Like if you use a rubber or rawhide mallet, you're gonna get softer blows. If you use a steel hammer, it's like you're getting that force. So you just have to be, you have to adjust your hand accordingly. Your hand will not work the same way with every tool. So the pressure is going to be determined by what tool you use and how heavy it is and the shape it is and different things like that.
It does help if you find a tool you like and can get used to it, though.
Yes. So that's also the dangerous thing, because if you get used to one thing, then if you don't have that thing, like I got into one of my enameling instructors' heads. I said, "Oh, you have the magic nickel." And one day he couldn't find the magic nickel and he like almost had a nervous breakdown. I was like, dude, you can pick a different coin. They're all magic. But I had gotten into his head and not on purpose.
No, you remembered that.
I know. He was like, I can't find my nickel. I can't find my nickel. Because if you put a nickel in your sifter, it helps push the grains through the sifter. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's what I'm talking about. And anyways, he couldn't find his nickel, and then he was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't do this."
All those nickels are pretty much the same.
And it's like, do you want me to go in the car and get one? And he was like, ah. And something happened where like he sifted something and it didn't work out, like it wasn't even, or was something happened, and that is what kind of got into his head because it didn't work out and he didn't have the nickel. And so then he was like, oh my gosh, I need the nickel. I wonder if he still remembers that. He's gonna go and like, I don't know. Anyway,
bless the next nickel.
he's gonna do something with that nickel. It's gonna be like tattooed to his body. Does it?
Yeah, you don't think so?
No, it's still pretty rough. It needs a lot of refinement, and this is where observation becomes your best friend. So that you can really like this. Okay, all right. Let me talk about muscle, the muscle structure. Your elbow don't come out like this, y'all, or your shoulder don't come out like that. So it needs to come in, and that will soften this. And you do have, and I also make my creatures have really long necks for some reason. I don't know what that's about. This one do not have that, but just so you know, when you look at one of my paintings, you're like, how come their neck is so long? I don't know. They're all a little bit exaggerated if you've ever looked at my paintings. But like this, that's not how that gut looks in real life. So you have to kind of adjust as you go. And then William's going to show you his pottery, but I didn't want to leave you in the middle of this without finishing some of these details. So right now I just made an ear. I'm going to go over here and make another ear. I'm just using the excess clay that's built up. And then again, it's all about refinement. And I don't know if I'm actually in the camera view or what. But there you go. One thing that be careful about these tips are silicone. So just make sure that you don't put it in anything that's going to eat away the plastic. And then I'm so close to the camera right now that y'all probably hear me wheezing and puffing. So again, we're going to work on refinement. So this muscle comes down like that, and then it comes up. And then the cool thing is that you can make that, you know, when you sculpt your own, you can make it look like anything you want. So if you want a more plus size mermaid, you can have a more plus size mermaid. You can do whatever you want. And if you want to have two tails, you can have two tails. If you want to have it, you know, you can do whatever you want. That's the beauty of that. So this is the collarbone. And then you just refine this. Keep working. So I don't know if y'all want to see this, like keep going. Or if you want to see William's pots, and then I can finish this off camera. But you know, I don't know how interesting this is for people. I mean, when I'm working on a larger sculpture, I think it's a little bit more interesting in the sense that you can see more movement and like you actually see something happening. With this, it's kind of like, you know, some of this stuff is really small and I can't get too close to the camera and I can't zoom in. So, it's not like, I don't know if this is actually interesting or not for people. But I'm going to keep going until William comes back up, and then I'll let him show you what he made in class. And we'll keep refining. Now, when you're working on hands are kind of tricky. So a way that you can do this is going to be like the blowed up version, is this is a good one that if you have a sharp tool, you can do that. So if that's a hand, get the thumb, the forefinger, middle finger, and that. That looks terrible, right? And then you kind of just go and taper them. And then that helps create those digits. And then you can trim as necessary. And you can also adjust them so that if you need it to be more like hand-like, you can make it more hand-like. But then you look at your own hand and you can kind of model it after that. But you, on this size, you have to do that real fine. This is obviously not going to be the hand for that. But you would do that with a little ball that's shaped like this big. And then sometimes, well, actually smaller, but sometimes you also don't need the whole thing. Like if you have like the gesture, you know, where you have like the illusion of it, you don't necessarily need to do the whole. I mean, that's not the best, but you know, when you're actually making a real one, and your hands are actually kind of larger, they're the size of your face, so you have to keep that in mind. That is a little bit I don't know what I cut with that, but anyways, you would blend those in, and by the time you end up blending, you'll have a smaller hand, and then yeah. So if you want me to keep going, I'll keep going. But otherwise, I'm going to call William up and he can show you the pots that he made. I don't know. Do y'all like this? Are you getting value out of this? Like, is this interesting to you? And of course, this is just the way that I sculpt also. So if you have other people who show you stuff, you know, everybody does stuff differently. I'm going to take that off for now. And actually, you can use your excess clay to build that little ball up also. So, yeah. So right now, what I would probably do is this is in the reverse, but I would adjust this and kind of build out some of those shapes and maybe work on the curvature of that and work on how this flares out. I like her, but I want to see William's pots too, Michelle. So this is pretty fascinating. I mean, this is kind of one of those things where we're real close. I have to be careful not to smash it with the camera. But so this is higher up. Um, Now this is another thing is you kind of have to sometimes you have to adjust your work height to what you need so you can actually see your work. That's another thing. Because sometimes okay, so here's another thing. So when you go, your clay will move in the direction that you push it. So if you move like this, you're pushing the clay from in here. Boy, I can't see anything. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can get a zoom back telephoto. That's worse. All right. So is this better to see? I mean, it gets blurry if I get too close. That's the only thing. So now it's like I'm like Goldilocks. I'm like, it's too close. It's too far. I can't see. Now it's too far. The other one, the tool was hitting the top of the thing. Oh, hi, Gilbert. He's like, sweet relief. The girls have been bothering him all day.
Yes, they have.
And he was like, no, I reject you. So I don't know. Can you actually see this?
Ooh, you're high.
I got the telephoto lens.
Oh.
And I don't know if this actually works or not. Can you see this, or does this look like a hot mess?
It looks like you can see it.
Can Instagram people see it? Because it looks hella fuzzy. Oh, wow. Whatever. Nobody's watching there anyway.
Oh, my. Where's my phone?
I don't know.
I lost my
Here, let me get out the way and you can show your pots.
Why? You're doing great.
And I'm going to go off the camera and then I'll show you. Whoa, Buzzy.
Here, let me check Instagram real quick.
That's tight. You can see the text.
It is fuzzy.
Oh, wow. That's why nobody's watching.
I wonder why it's so fuzzy.
I don't know. Probably the quality. It's on 720.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't figure out how to change it.
You have to change it before you go live.
Oh, wow.
But it doesn't tell you. It only warns you to go down. It doesn't say, would you like to go up? Where do you want? You want to go
When it says, I can see the face clearly. Oh, good. See how just a couple of I was gonna say brush strokes, but this is not a brush. A couple clay shaper strokes, and it can really kind of change that. All right, I'm gonna get out the way. You may have to adjust the camera how you like it.
It's getting hot in here.
I know you're telling me. I was like,
Let's open your window.
Whereas like the clay's too cold. And now I'm like, it's not too cold, y'all.
It's nice and
I'm getting
warm. Oh. I forgot to bring home a pliers. I got a kit to fix the toilet, and then I forgot to bring the pliers home. There's that coin probably that I was missing.
The magic nickel.
The
magic nickel.
Yeah, right. Okay, hello everybody. How are y'all doing? How's this going to be? Probably the wrong. Let's see. I made this. Yeah, it's not. I gotta switch this camera. Hold on, everybody. Hold on, everybody. Settings, camera. Ultra wide. There we go. You'll also have your lights on. Those extra lights. Hello, Norma. Hello, everybody. So I made this. This is a new one I just got back today. This is on the speckled clay. It's a nice little, kind of like a teacup. Kind of like a teacup size, but it's got a nice generous handle, which I like. I have bigger hands, so handles oftentimes, especially in teacups, make me feel like I can do like this only. So I like to try to make sure that I have enough room for 2 full fingers in there. And so that's why my handles sometimes are a bit big, but there's a reason for that. So I made that. And then I made this one. I'm not sure what I think of this one. I thought it was going to be a little bit more green. A little bit more green. It's pretty green. But I also thought this was going to run more. You can see I kind of stopped short so that it didn't hit the kiln shelf. I do that a lot on my pieces so that I don't ruin my teacher's kiln, especially when the projects say that, or the glaze instructions say that the glaze is going to run, and this one did, and then it didn't run very much. But I did put on light coats because I was trying not to get it to run too much. So this is just a nice little bowl. I think it's a nice little bowl. The way this camera is, it makes this look short no matter which way I turn it. It looks shorter. It's not. It's the same size. Norma says, I like the big handles you put on your cups. Thank you. Yeah, I have bigger hands, so when I have to drink tea out of a tiny cup, which sometimes I do, you know, when you get a teacup, then you're like this and like trying to drink it like this. So I like a handle. And then this is the last one I have for today. And I tried to do more of a decorative thing on this, which what I really like about this is that these dots kind of went outside of there. Like these stripes were the things that contained the items that make these kind of splotchy marks. And so whenever they did their thing in the kiln, they went outside of their boundaries, which kind of looks kind of cool, I think. And then I did the same thing on the inside in here. And I like how they're just kind of random. But then the red, I like this red a lot. But I'm glad that I broke up the red, because just a red bowl like that, I don't think I would have liked.
Well, that's good.
Thanks. So that's my other one that I did in my class. And today I was saying I was trying to work on I was trying to make some taller vases was the idea. And I wanted them to be like about this wide. Like I wanted them to be narrower than this. I wanted them to be tall and kind of like that size. And wow, did I not, I failed impeccably, let's say that. Because for one, I couldn't get anything much taller than this before it collapsed. I couldn't get anything much narrower than this before it collapsed.
But did you learn anything? Like, is it the moisture in the clay?
It was very,
the hand?
The kiln was going today, so it was very, it was hotter and drier in the studio. So my clay kept, and I have fairly warm hands now that my thyroid's corrected. So my clay kept drying out. And I kept, twisting the clay because it would dry out so quickly that my fingers would catch and the clay would twist, and then I'd get a weak spot. And so I finally started to solve that a little bit, and I found how to correct that to a degree. But and I also found out a reason why some of my tops do the same thing. So I did learn some things, which was good. And Amy, my teacher, was good at pointing out. We only had a few people in the class today, so she was able to watch pretty carefully what I was doing, and she pointed out some things that I've had issues with here for a while. So I'm hoping that with further practice, I'll be able to fix some of that stuff. Lena says, I like that they are flat inside at the bottom. Nice glaze colors. Thanks. Yeah, I try to make my bowls, I try to flatten them out at the bottom so that, so you have a nice base to put stuff in. I always like a bowl that has room inside. Like if you curve your bottoms in, you lose space, right? So I always like when there's a nice flat bottom and then the sides come up, so it gives you that depth and room to put stuff in there. So yeah, thank you. Man says maybe the clay was too wet. Well, that possibly happened. So I talked about this project I was working on, and I made like 7 or 8 pieces the last time I was in my class, working on a kind of beading project that I'm trying to figure out something. And every single piece but one ended up with very, very cracked bottoms. So Amy said that possibly my clay was too wet, which I do have that issue. As I said today, like my clay tends to dry out quickly because my hands are warmer. So I feel like my clay gets dry as I work with it fast. So I use a lot of water. And so that was possibly, when you use a lot of water, sometimes it causes your clay to crack when it dries. So I have to figure that out. I was also making the bottoms very thin because of the way I wanted things to be, but I might have to thicken the bottoms a little bit. And we might try drying them with a heat gun to see if drying them more quickly, or at least getting some of that moisture off quickly and then let them dry at room temperature will stop the cracking a little bit. And then there's always the chance that I may have to move to the speckled clay, because the speckled clay she said, tends to not crack as much or have as big of cracks as the white clay does. So this is the whiter clay. So I like the speckled clay anyway. I just thought the whiter clay might be easier to work with for my project, but we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. And it says, yes, good for candles, incense holders, etc. Yeah, with a flat bottom, you can put a lot of stuff in there then, right? So, yeah, so that's what I made. And that's what I tried to make today. But I ended up, I think I told y'all, I was not having, I am right-handed technically, but I use the wheel left-handed. So when my wheel is spinning, my wheel spins clockwise, which is what a normal left-hander would use, and I use my right hand on the inside of things and my left hand on the outside. That's how a left-hander typically would use a pottery wheel. It just feels more comfortable to me, and I feel like I have more control that way. And my left hand does most of the work, while my right hand kind of just guides from the inside, but I push a lot from the outside with my left hand. So because things were just not working out today for me on that way, I decided to, because I was getting in my head, when things don't work out often enough, you start to get a little bit crazy sometimes. So I said, okay, I'm going to turn the wheel. And I made the wheel go the other way. And I tried to work with my hands this way, where my right hand was on the outside. My left hand was trying to guide from the inside. It was harder, but I did successfully. I could have had possibly 2 successful projects that way, but I kept pushing the clay because I kept wanting to play around and see how far I could go and what I could do with the wheel spinning that way. So I kept going until collapse. And then when something would collapse, I'd cut it off and I'd try and make it again from the clay that was left. And I'd keep doing that till I had not enough clay left. So yeah, Amanda says, I'm the same, lefty on the wheel. I never thought about it. Yeah, whenever I sat down, I think the first wheel I sat at just happened to be spinning that way. And it made complete sense to me. So I've just always used my left hand on the outside. And the wheel spins clockwise, but that's the way a left-hander would do it. And when I try and do it the other way, do it this way, it's very awkward. But I played around with that today because I like to do that. I like to try things with both hands. Like whenever we were growing up, we'd go bowling every once in a while when they had cheap bowling nights. My family would go out, and I would try and bowl left-handed just to see how well I could do. And when we'd play, basketball, my brother and I would play sometimes. I would try and dribble left-handed just to see. So I try to always keep that in mind, like trying to exercise your other hand and your other kind of brain power, because it takes a different thought process kind of, because your brain wires the way you use things the most. And so when you try to force it to do other things, I think it helps expand your brain a little bit. And just, I think it's good brain exercises keep you young, maybe brain young anyway. So that's that. How's everyone doing today? Are you coming back, Andrew? Are you?
I don't know. It depends if they want.
What are y'all doing? How's it going?
I was gonna go to the cottage, and then it started raining torrential.
Oh, it was torrential when I got to and that's probably when it was. It came through the pottery class too. It was pouring. It was pouring, and let me put this down here so you at least have something to look at. But I was up in Johnstown today, and I took some things up there, took our incense up there, so we'd have some incense for sale. And I started unpacking some things. I unpacked more beads and a few things up there. And I went to the local hardware store. We're very lucky. There's a Lowe's and Home Depot in Johnstown as well, but there's a local hardware store called Bentley's. And for a local family-owned hardware store, like normally when you say that around here, it's kind of a small little little hardware store. This one, they have a lot of stuff. They took me in a room today, which I didn't even know they had, and they had stuff for plumbing. So I went up there because we have a toilet we have to fix here at the house, and I grabbed a kit to fix that, hopefully. And then, of course, I forgot the pliers. Though we have both pairs of pliers up at the Johnstown store because we needed both to untighten a bolt, and now they're both up there. But I also got the weed eater from up there because we need that at the cottage.
And here.
And here. So I got that today and brought that back home. But yeah, so I got to run up to Johnstown tomorrow and get a wrench, not a wrench, a pair of pliers. Hi, Gilbert. Hi, buddy. Missed you. So that I can fix the toilet here, hopefully, tomorrow. I was going to do that tonight. That was going to be tonight's project. And then I missed out on the thing. The wrench. Pliers. Everybody, can you hear Gilbert purring? He's purring so loud. So what else is everyone up to? Anybody who's watching, let me know because I haven't been here. I just told you about my day. What have you all been up to? How'd you like Andrew's demonstration? Did you learn anything? How's it going? Let me know. Who's watching? Who's watching us? I know Lennis and Amanda are watching us, and Norma. Anybody else out there? Lennis says, I always love the carving faces. I know. Andrew's really good at carving the faces.
I don't know about that.
He says, I don't know about that. Don't be down on yourself, Andrew. You're good at carving faces.
I don't know. Yeah, you can see this face.
Just because you're having an issue with one face doesn't mean you're not good at carving faces.
I don't know. I think this face is actually turning out okay.
Oh, good.
I mean, maybe. Get up out the chair and yes, sir.
Oh, I thought you were just going to hand it to me.
No, I'm going to keep working, bro.
Okay, I'm going to go get something to eat, bro.
Well, maybe we'll do this thing where you get to see it and then you'll have to go and watch the whatever internet. I started working on the hands here and on the one side and kind of refining it a little bit. But that is, let me show, where's a penny? So people can see the size. Actually, those lights do help.
I was going to say, you didn't have any lights on over here.
So her head is a little bit larger than Abraham Lincoln's head, but not by much. And I see that one area is, one breast is way lower than the other. That's the thing. Also, the camera, you gotta zoom in.
Yeah. If your eyes are going bad, you can always zoom in using the camera. That's how I look at small print anymore. My up-close eyes have gone a little bit wonky. My mom warned me that would happen.
Lena says, looking good. You making faux scrimshaw? That was kind of the plan, but scrimshaw, the real scrimshaw, we would take and make like a flat shape and then incise it. And then it's more of like cutting lines into it, and then you take the dark. So this is kind of like, nah, then just a release sculpture then. But that was the idea, as I was gonna make a scrimshaw. She's like, oh, my tummy.
Who?
Having the gastrointestinal problems.
Who is?
This mermaid, she's like, oh, oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oh.
Oh, I see.
Uh-huh.
That's what happens when we have to go from the cottage.
Yeah, this is the pose that I make when I'm in pictures, squeezing my belly in.
Except we learned that when you put your hands behind your back,
It makes your belly go forward.
it goes flatter.
La
That's
eyes.
how you asked me. You said, "How'd you get a flat stomach picture of me?" You had your hands
Oh,
behind your back.
who, me?
Yeah.
In which picture?
Well, let me show
In
you.
front of the new store.
No,
That did not. That
no.
looked like I had, like I'm expecting.
Like you're expecting.
Except for the one your mom took. That one turned out okay.
This one.
Oh. I also had stripes on to trick the eye. The
Stripes.
eye tricker. Karen says, love her. Thanks. Do you love her even after though she's having tummy turbulence? So we'll see. Anyways, so I'll keep working. I want to watch that Bridgerton.
I know.
I've been watching the memes all day about them talking because I
Uh,
can't actually watch the show without William. So I'm like, well, if they talk, like they were guessing which song, because I guess on that Bridgerton, they do like contemporary songs, but then they do like a string quartet does them, and then so then they make the actors guess what song it is, and then the one dude he can't guess anything, he don't know it. I was like, I can sing them all, but I don't know the titles. Like I'd be probably terrible at the game because I can't remember things either. So you can actually see this now? Oh wow! I'm about to turn off the TV and you can see it. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna actually take a needle tool. This is not a needle tool, and go in here and go and really outline these fingers and press it in. Now, if I did not properly blend them down, this would not be possible. But when you look at your hand, so you get this one is higher up. So this one's right, but it looks weird. So I'll have to put a little twist on that and maybe shorten it. But this looks weird. This right here looks too long. So maybe I have to move that finger up. I gotta keep working at this. But I won't watch that Bridgerton, so. And I thought it'd be nice to have a day off from trying to sell y'all stuff. We probably should go over to the cottage and go ransack something and try to do lots or something, but I thought it might be nice to give you all a break from that.
Everyone needs a creative break sometimes.
And then the other thing is about this hand is I should do knuckles. So the other thing is so when you look at this, you have these structures in your hand. So I would probably mess it up like that.
Oh, you see this? 1 year ago was the day that we did our first yard work, just like we're planning.
Oh,
And we went from that to that.
show them.
It's time now. We thought we were behind schedule. So this is kind of what our yard looks like right now too. And this is 1 year ago. And then we did all the work and laid down some mulch. So it looks like this is the day. This was around this time last year.
We didn't do a great job last year.
No, but we did something at least.
So, anyways, Kansas still love her with a gastrointestinal tummy turbulence. All right. So thank you so much for hanging out. I'm not gonna flip it around because I'm extra greasy. See, William, he don't get greasy under these lights. Me, it looks like I've been frying fried chicken and got splattered.
Oh, you look fine. Stop it.
I feel greasy. You know, when you feel greasy, you must be greasy.
Oh my.
It's a greasy state of mind. So I will save you from the shine, and say goodbye now.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good night. Hopefully, y'all will stay creative
Thanks
and
for
make some
watching.
stuff. Be sure to check out our website, www.allegorygallery.com. There's lots of treasures for your mermaid hoard. And I will try to bake this tonight. And I will say I'm going to probably do this. I'm like, okay, bye. And then I'm going to shoot
I
some.
know.
And I'm just going to stipple this, maybe. And add a little texture or something for the scales. And then bake that. And then I'm going to do a glaze on top so you can actually see all the details. All right. Have a good night. See ya.